Hi there, my name is Steve Gearhart, and this is the Unagi Observer. Thank you so much for stopping by and watching this week's video. This week's video is a little bit of a concern about criticism that I've been seeing about movies and television shows and things and whatnot over the past year or so, particularly in the past, I would say probably 3 months. But before I get into that, let me just put a shout out to OnCon 6, which was a lot of fun. I had a couple panels there, some other panels going on there. Of course, Kira had her wonderful videos of walking around in Japan and exploring things, and it was just a wonderful, lovely time that I had there. So glad that I did that. If you want to see said OnCon 6, there's a link down below. Please check it out and throw some comments out there, and hopefully you'll learn a thing or two. It was a lot of, like I said, it was a lot of fun. So I'm glad I did it. Another thing coming up here is that this is towards the end of the season. As everybody knows, I kind of do my season between February, beginning or mid-February to the end of the year. So we'll talk a little bit about that coming up. So let's get into my concerns about critics. So I'm having a little bit of trouble with the criticism of the past few months of various things, particularly movies and television shows. I'm kind of wondering if people have lost the art of making a review. To do a review, like anybody can, like me, can throw a channel up onto YouTube or whatever and say, I liked something. That's easy to do. But then it becomes on you and on me to say why I liked it. And then if I go and say, this is why I think you should watch it, I have to provide you with the reasons why to watch it, or to listen to it, or to read it, to play it, whatever it is, whatever the work is. So you have to be a little bit informed to do the criticism. That doesn't mean that, like, you know, if you see a movie adapted on a book like Dune, doesn't mean that you have to read the book Dune, but you kind of have to know what Dune is about so that you can accurately look at the movie and go, did these things work or not? And, you know, or something like that. And then you can kind of go into the reviews of, I didn't like it because I thought the CGI was bad. And you have to provide examples and things of that nature. So that's how you do a good review. Also, part of a review is, while you do offer your opinion, I liked it, I didn't like it, here are the things I liked, here are the things I didn't like, here's the sum total of those things, you have to also have a lens to look through when you're reviewing something, when you're giving a critique of it. And that interpretation, that lens, that view, can be of anything. Maybe it's a historical lens. Maybe it's an ideological lens. Maybe it's maybe you used to, like me, used to work in the theater, and maybe there's elements of theater that you apply to what you're watching to, so that you can make an informed opinion. The last few things that have been criticized that I've watched, particularly movies and television shows, seem to not have those things. Like, it wasn't that the reviews were poorly written. They weren't. They were. It's just that they didn't really seem to embody a real review. Here's what I mean by that. For example, sometimes I'll look at the review and look at what I watched and go, did we actually watch the same thing? If you have to ask that question, something is very, very wrong. Because it means that the reviewer either didn't watch it, which we're finding out can be the case. Remember Adele's album, the guy who was asking her questions about the album and he didn't even listen to it? We're coming to find out that that might be happening with movies and TV shows and anime and things like that. That people are actually not really watching it and are just phoning it in. And just kind of just gauging, looking at, like, you know, whatever, some Reddit site of a bunch of fanboys saying something about it and going, okay, that's my review, is based on what somebody else says. Well, that's not a review. You're just regurgitating something, an opinion from somebody else. And I feel that's happening a lot for the ones that are professional reviews, review sites. And I really don't get it. I mean, it's not that there aren't things to criticize, right? Nothing's perfect. There are things that you can look at and go, I didn't like this. I loved the movie Dune, but there were elements in there that I was just like, I wasn't too fond of that. But as a whole, I really enjoyed it. But the reason why I ask, did you see the movie, is because, or do you know anything about Dune? Again, you don't have to read the book, you just have to have some type of knowledge about the book to give you an informed opinion of the movie. So when someone does a criticism, which I saw a lot for Dune, which was they talked a lot about environmentalism. And that seemed to be distracting to me for this movie. That's why I didn't like it. That's what Dune is about. It's about environmentalism, and it's about the impact of the ecology of Dune, the world of Arrakis, and how it plays out politically for the human race. So if you criticize a core concept of the entire being of a piece of work, it makes me ask you, do you understand what it is that you're looking at? Did you understand Dune? Did you understand why it exists? Why was this movie made? What is its importance? You know, all that stuff. So when I sit there and I see something like that, I have to question, did you actually watch the movie? Are you basing it off of something that somebody wrote because they didn't read the book and they didn't understand it, or they didn't read anything about the book and didn't understand the movie as a result? Because there wasn't really a whole lot about structural criticism and about story criticism. Now, it's one thing if you compare Lynch's Dune to Villeneuve's Dune, and you make your opinions and your critique and your review based on that. That's fine, because you're basing it off of two things that are similar in terms of what they are. They're both the movie Dune. They both have the same plot. They have the same characters, except this movie was done differently than this movie, and this is what I liked about this one as opposed to this one. Those are valid criticisms. Those are valid critiques. Those are valid reviews. Another movie that I want to talk about is The Eternals. And this is one that I really don't understand. Reviews leading up to when I saw the movie finally were that this was an awful movie. It sucked. It was bad. It was horrible. I watched it in the theater and enjoyed myself. I took it for what it was, and I could do a review for it and basically say to you, do you need to see it in the movie theater? Probably not. But if you like MCU movies, then watch it on Disney Plus when it comes out. There you go. And I would tell you the reasons why behind that. But to see the reviews and how scathing they were of this movie, and I watched the movie and I thought to myself, okay, the story goes along. I can follow the story. It was fine. The CGI was good. Action scenes, a lot of action. There are some core concepts that were, I know that if you don't have a knowledge of Marvel Comics, it might escape you. But overall, it wasn't the worst movie I've ever seen. Certainly wasn't the best movie. But it wasn't this piece of trash that everyone keeps saying it is. And I have to ask, did you actually watch the movie? Or are you basing your review on what other people say on forums like Reddit or one of the Chan sites or something, or maybe somebody on YouTube said, I thought this movie sucked because it wasn't exactly like the comics, which is a whole other issue altogether. So I have to ask, why? Where did you phone it in? Are you just typing it up so you can collect a paycheck? Because that's what it feels like. There's no substance to these reviews. There's no real substance to them. The last one I'm going to briefly touch on is Cowboy Bebop. Now, the Cowboy Bebop thing, I'm going to allude to the fanboy criticism, which is, if it wasn't exactly like the anime, therefore I hate it. Okay, that's your opinion. If that's what you were looking for and you're not going to get it, then yes, I can understand why you hate it. But you really shouldn't hate it because there's no way you're going to ever get that. Okay? Let's be honest. You're never going to get a scene for scene from the anime into a movie picture, to a movie, or to a television show. You're just not going to get it. You have to look at it as if you were watching an MCU movie, which is, here you have something familiar, but what's fleshed out is different. And you should be open-minded enough to say, okay, what's the difference here? Does it work? Now, that's the important criticism, because sometimes it doesn't. It truly doesn't. There were elements in Cowboy Bebop that did not work. It happens. And if you were to say that, then that's one thing. But it's another thing to say, oh, well, it wasn't exactly like the anime, therefore it's trash. Okay, that's just an opinion. There's no criticism, there's no review there. The other part of this is I have to ask, again, did people actually see this? Did they watch it? Did they understand what Cowboy Bebop is? Because that's another thing about the reviews. The anime is a 26 episode series. The live action is 10 episodes. Do not try and tell me that you watched all 26 and that you're an expert on Cowboy Bebop enough to make a criticism based on the anime. Sorry, I don't believe you. Now, if you were to sit there and you say to me, well, I am a longtime fan and you can speak to it, that's different. But a lot of these review sites don't have that ability to do that. Now, when you get to the anime sites and they kind of put out the review, it's even more confusing because, again, it wasn't bad. It was quite good, actually. Again, there were elements, you can see my past reviews on it. There were elements that didn't work, sure, but there was a lot of other stuff that made up for those elements. But again, did they watch the same thing or was it phoned in? And another part of this criticism that worries me, and this isn't just for anime or anime adaptations, this is for any work in general, is when someone says, I am not going to watch this because I don't like something that was a political idea that was mentioned outside of the production of the work. In other words, it's not the work itself that you're angry at. You're angry at what somebody said outside of the work that might pertain to the work. For example, in Cowboy Bebop, the character, the actor who plays Grimm, made mention of something how he thought that his portrayal of the character in live action was a better view of that character than what was in the anime. And a lot of people boycotted watching Cowboy Bebop, the live action version, because of that. Because, oh, he's being woke, so I don't want to watch it. To be honest, if you're going to boycott something over a political statement like that, that's legitimate. Okay? I'm not going to take that away from you. That's a legitimate, if you really feel that strongly, then that's a legitimate view to have. But it's not a review. It's not a criticism. You're not looking at the work. How can you criticize or review a work if you don't even look at it, right? You can't review Cowboy Bebop live action if you don't watch it. But people are doing that. They're boycotting it, they're not watching it, and they're providing reviews. And worse, people are going to sites like Rotten Tomato without having watched it, but because they're so upset about the politics that they start going to a review site which enables you to say, I give it this rating because this is how I feel about the work itself, but you're not doing that because you're basing it off of something that has nothing to do with the work itself. How can you do that? How can you give it a rating if you don't watch it? I'm not sure that things are being watched these days. I'm not sure that things are being watched in their entirety. I'm not sure that people are actually informing themselves before or after they see a piece of work like this, whether it be a movie, a book, an album, or whatever. I'm not sure that people are actually doing proper criticisms and reviews. I think we need to get back and get away from this idea that, I'm just going to phone it in because this is what the fanboys are saying, so that's what I'm going to run with. No, you got to do your job. You got to do your due diligence, especially if you're getting paid for it, okay? I don't get paid to do this. But if you're getting paid to do it, man, do better. You got to do better. You got to have some type of idea of what it is that you're looking at. You have to educate yourself a little bit. Again, if you're looking at a movie that's an adaptation of a book, you don't have to read the book, but you should know what the core concepts are, right? To enable you to do a proper review of the movie. I mean, that just stands to reason. You got to do that. You got to actually look at the thing. You can't do a review if you don't watch it. And it's very clear to me that even though I'm asking the question, did you actually watch it? I don't think you did. And lastly, if you're going to boycott something, great. That's your opinion. That's an honest, legitimate way to go about it. But don't you dare try to tell me that you can do a review on something that you're boycotting. And when you do something like that, and when you go to a site like Rotten Tomatoes and you purposely give it a bad rating simply because you don't like the politics of a member of the cast or crew, that is not only disingenuous, it's freaking dishonest. And you should be ashamed of yourself. If you're not going to watch it, don't watch it. But don't sit there and tell me what it's about and why it's bad when you haven't seen it. Don't. That's just dishonest, and I really don't like it. Okay, so those are my concerns over the criticism over the past, certainly the past couple months, 2-3 months, and over the past year. Hopefully, maybe people will get better about it and actually return to actually doing proper reviews. All right, so enough of that. Done with that part, and let's kind of talk about the end of the season. Okay, as I say, every year my season usually runs from mid-February or so to the end of the year. So whatever the end of the year, let me look at my calendar. The last episode of this season will probably be right after Christmas in that last week of December. So what's going to happen for those of you who are new to this? Does this mean that the channel just stops from the 1st of January to about mid-February? No. I'm still going to put stuff up here. Sometimes it might be... This is where I kind of get a little creative with things. Maybe I'll throw up an AMV, or maybe I'll throw up some interesting, weird tidbit things like 3-minute videos, whatever, stuff like that. Normally, this would be the time where I would do an Animore con video. Unfortunately, Animore no longer exists. And I really like that. It's a very small convention, but I really enjoyed going to it. So I'm going to have to do other things. But you get the idea. As a matter of fact, I think that's when I'll actually be able to have the time to make you digital sushi, because I owe you guys digital sushi. So that'll probably be coming up in January. But you get the idea. So we're going to be wrapping things up in the last week for this season for 2021 at the end of this month. And then I'm going to sit back, and like I do every year, and look at the things that work and didn't work and what I want to try and do for the next season, see what happens. There is a possibility that I might be going to an onsen in Virginia. Wouldn't that be fun? So that's definitely something that would probably pop up in the next season. So anyway, so just to give you a heads up, we're still going to do the videos between now and the end of the month. And then we're going to go into where I kind of take a little bit of a break from doing these videos from week to week to week to week. It's a little bit of downtime for me to recharge a little bit. But we still have other things going on. Of course, the weekly dig will still be going on, still be happening. So that's going to be a thing still. So, you can go over there and take a look at things. And, so just keep coming back to the channel every week. There'll be something here. There will be something here for you. Okay, so that's it for this video. Just a reminder, COVID, unfortunately, is still a thing, so you need to practice social distancing. Wear your mask. If you haven't got your vaccine yet, your shots, please get your shots. It doesn't hurt you to get them, okay? You don't lose anything by getting the shot. If you're like me and you're needing to get your booster, get your booster. Just the more we can do to get over this COVID thing so that we can have more and more in-person conventions, the better, because I would love to see you guys in person. That would be so awesome. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I would love to do is do one of these shows live at a convention. That would be really, really cool. So anyway, that's that. Don't forget, down below are going to be links to OnCon 6. Please check it out. And yeah, love you guys, and I'll see you next time.